My dear people, today we celebrate the feast of Joachim and Anne, St. Joachim and Anne, who are the patrons of married couples. The gospel that we have speaks about finding the pearl of great price, doing everything that one can to get the pearl. And I suppose courtship is like that. People see someone and say, this is the person I want to spend the rest of my life with. And then, like the pearl of great price, they do everything to try and get their pearl of great price. And sometimes they do a lot of good things, sometimes they do a lot of bad things too. They tell a lot of lies about themselves to try and impress the pearl of great price so that they will get the pearl of great price. But you all know those things because you have gone through them. Married life is, in fact, a vocation. It is a call from Almighty God given to two people to live their lives in such a way that they reflect the tremendous love which Christ has for the church, which God has for the world. It is a love, therefore, that is supposed to be totally self-giving. There can be no selfishness in married love. When young people come to me and tell me they want to get married, I always ask the young man, why do you want to marry this young lady? And I always ask the young lady the same thing, why do you want to marry this young man? 99% of the times, the person says to me, this person will make me happy. I know that living with this person will make me happy. And I say to them, immediately your marriage has failed. And they say to me, Father, you put it goat mouth on us. And I say to them, you put goat mouth on yourself. You see, nobody can make you happy. And you all know that, you married couples. Nobody can make you happy, you know. Happiness only comes when you make other people happy. It never comes if you sit back and wait for the other person to make you happy. And so often, you see, in married life, people sit back and wait for the other one to make them happy. And when that happens, when you have two people sitting back and waiting for the other one to make them happy, well, they never arrive at happiness. Happiness only comes when you set out to make someone else happy. And so, married couples have to be people who say I will give my life and spend the rest of my life trying to make this person happy. And if all married couples could say, my spouse has dedicated his or her life to making me happy, what happy married couples we would have. Not true? You sure? The problem, of course, is that there's a lot of selfishness in human beings. And we always think of ourselves, what I need, what I want, and we never ask ourselves, what can I do to make this person happy? Now, married life, happy married life, of course, depends on love. Love which is always seeking the best that we can for someone else. But there's something else it depends on too, and that is emotional attraction. And emotional attraction is a strange thing. Believe me, it's a strange thing. Emotional attraction is what makes you do crazy things. You don't remember the crazy things that you did when you were 18, 19? That is emotional attraction. You men, you remember buying a piece of jewelry for your girlfriend at the time when you didn't have enough money to pay for it? You remember those things, don't you? And you young ladies, you remember sneaking out of the house because when your parents told you, I don't want you talking with that man. But you sneak out the house same way. That is emotional attraction. But emotional attraction needs to be built all the time. It needs to be built all the time. And how do you build emotional attachment? By doing the little things. By doing the little things which express your affection. When I say this, I remember saying this in another church before I was Archbishop. And a man came up to me afterwards and said, Father, you put me in plenty trouble. I said, so how I put you in trouble? He said, because my wife going to want me to do everything that you said there. What did I say? He said, you know something? You're coming home from work. You know your wife loves roses or orchids. Well, stop in the flower shop and buy a rose for her. And bring the rose home, not because it's a birthday, not because it's your wedding anniversary, nothing like that. And when she looks at you and says, what you did? Why are you giving me this? What you did? You simply say, I love you, darling. Simply say, I love you, darling. That's why I bring it for you. To keep your emotional life alive, put aside 1% of your salary to surprise your spouse when it's not the birthday, when it's not the anniversary, to surprise them simply because you love them. Ladies, that means something. How often do your spouses surprise you? But you see, you know, and it works both ways, huh? A couple came into my office recently, and so the talk went on, and the wife said, when we were just married, people would think it was one person in the car. We were stuck up against each other so much. And the husband looked at her and said, I didn't move. You see, it works both ways. And just as you wives want your husband to surprise you, so too husbands want their wives to show them the love and affection which they need. But those are the things that keep marriage alive. Anytime a marriage, a relationship becomes boring, something is wrong. Married relationships must never become boring. There must always be life, excitement about it. And you see, when you live that way, then you begin to reflect for others that self-giving love of Christ for the church. That is your vocation, to be an image of the self-giving love of God for the world, of Christ for the church. And you have to find ways of doing it so that people like myself who don't have spouses, we can look at you and say, if they love each other so much, how much more must God love the world? Must Christ love the church? That is your vocation. It is to that you are called by Almighty God. And so, the Feast of Joachim and Anne is a moment when married couples are called to reflect on their lives and ask themselves, is my life, or is our life, our relationship, a reflection of Christ's love for his church? When people look at us, can they say, see how they love each other? Recently, a young man said this to me, Father, you see this marriage thing? I don't want to get involved in that at all. And I asked why. He said, Father, my grandfather was divorced. My father is divorced. I don't want to go down that road. So see me as staying clear. What a legacy. What a legacy. When children refuse to get married because of the witness of their parents. And so, all of us are called to ask ourselves, in this land of ours, is marriage something that attracts because the witness is so beautiful? Before I became Archbishop of Port of Spain, some of you may know, I worked in the tribunal. I was a judge in the tribunal. And you know the sad thing about that? I'd say 75% of the cases I was dealing with were people who were married for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years at the most. And when you go through their history, see how often the relationship of the parents affected one or both of the parties. And so they were incapable of the commitment of married life. And so I return to the question, is our marriage, is your marriage something, a marriage or relationship which is a reflection of God's love? God's love which is total, which is faithful, which is forgiving. God's love which helps us to become better people. You know, sometimes you go into a home and the tension is so great you want to run. You could feel it, you could cut it with a knife. And then sometimes you go into a home and it's a joy to be there. And they have to throw you out because you wouldn't leave. Married life is meant to make us into better and nicer people. But that only comes when we live that self-giving love, which is a reflection of the self-giving love of Christ. And I'll end with this little thing. When you're a priest or a bishop, you get invited to homes very often. So you go, and most times they're giving you a meal. So of course, because you're the priest or the bishop, they serve you first. But I look on very often to see what happens. Now, everybody here has their special piece of meat. There are people who like breast, some people like the thigh, some people like the legs. If you're like me, you like foot and the poke nose. That's the nicest part. But what you see happening is this. You see some people who serve themselves first because they want to make sure that they get their favorite piece of meat. And they're serving themselves first because somebody else might like that piece of meat too. And then there are other people who will serve themselves last. Will serve themselves last. Will run the risk of others of not getting the piece of meat that they like. Now, what does that say to you? Well, what it says to me is this, that there are people who build habits of thinking of themselves first before they think of others. Now, Jesus told us there are two commandments, no? Love God above all things and? Oh gosh, Father, you have to teach these people. Jesus told us, I give you a new commandment. Love as I have loved you. Love your neighbor as yourself is Old Testament religion. New Testament religion is love as I have loved you. Okay? How did Jesus love us? If Jesus had thought of himself first, he would not have died on the cross. Jesus thought of us. And because he thought of us, he was willing to undergo the cross. To love as Jesus loved is to put others first. It's to think of others first. It's to put the good of others before you think of yourself. That is the love to which married couples are called. To think of others before they think of themselves. And I can assure you, and I'll put my head on a block for this, that if you live your lives thinking of the other first, you will arrive at true happiness. And I'll also put my head on a block and tell you, if you think of yourself first all the time, you will never arrive at happiness. So on this feast of St. Joachim and Anne, let us ask them to intercede before God for us. And that they obtain for us the strength that we need to be able to love as Christ loved, putting the other first. When we love like that, Calvary is repeated. People are saved. People are saved. And we become the gate of heaven for the other spouse. When we do not love like that, we do not become the gate of heaven for the other spouse. And always remember, spouses, always remember, your primary duty in life is to ensure that your spouse and your children get to heaven. That is your primary duty in life. To ensure that your spouse and your children get to heaven. Now, don't make them get to heaven because they pass hell on earth. God bless you all.